Parrot alerts about baby eating something deadly. Mother rushed to hospital in panic. Please listen until the end to be amazed by this story. Benny's feathers ruffled as he watched the scene unfolding in the sunlit living room. The African grey parrot's keen eyes tracked every movement from his perch near the window, his head tilting with concern as little Poppy crawled across the plush carpet towards something that had fallen from the coffee table. Alicia, Poppy's mother, was just a few steps away in the adjoining kitchen, humming softly as she prepared lunch, occasionally glancing over at her daughter, who had recently mastered the art of crawling and was now unstoppable in her exploration of the world around her. The house was peaceful that morning, sunlight streaming through tall windows that overlooked a quaint neighborhood with tree-lined streets. The only sounds were Alicia's humming, the gentle whir of the ceiling fan, and Poppy's occasional babbling as she discovered new treasures on her journey across the living room floor. Benny had been part of the family long before Poppy arrived, originally belonging to Alicia's uncle Daniel, a linguistics professor who had spent years teaching the intelligent bird not just to mimic words, but to understand context and meaning. When Daniel passed away, Benny came to live with Alicia and her husband James, bringing with him an extensive vocabulary and remarkable sensitivity to human behavior. What caught Benny's attention that morning was the small round object that had fallen from the coffee table, one of James's work pills, bright blue and potentially deadly if ingested by a small child. James had been rushing to get to work and had spilled his medication, apparently missing one when he cleaned up. Poppy's chubby fingers reached for the colorful object, her curious eyes lighting up at the new discovery. In that moment, Benny knew he had to act. "No! Danger! Poppy! No!" Benny squawked loudly, flapping his wings with unprecedented urgency. Alicia turned, startled by the parrot's sudden outcry. She'd never heard him sound so distressed before. "What is wrong, Benny?" she called out, wiping her hands on a kitchen towel. "Danger! Blue danger! Baby, no!" Benny continued frantically, hopping from one foot to another on his perch, his gaze locked on Poppy. Something in Benny's tone cut through Alicia's confusion. The parrot had never acted this way before. She rushed into the living room just as Poppy's fingers closed around the small blue pill, mere seconds away from putting it in her mouth. "Oh my God!" Alicia gasped, diving forward and gently prying her daughter's fingers open. The pill fell to the carpet, and Alicia scooped it up, her heart pounding in her chest as she realized what had nearly happened. Poppy's face crumpled at having her new treasure taken away, but Alicia was too shaken to comfort her immediately. She stared at the pill in her palm, one of James's prescription heart medications, potent enough that even a single pill could be fatal to someone as small as Poppy. "Good bird, good Benny," the parrot declared, settling down now that the danger had passed. Alicia scooped Poppy up with one arm and walked over to Benny's perch, tears welling in her eyes. "Yes, good Benny, very good Benny," she whispered, reaching out to gently stroke his feathers. "You saved her." The parrot preened under the attention, bobbing his head as if accepting the gratitude, but his eyes remained watchful, always vigilant. Later that evening, when James returned home, Alicia recounted what had happened, her voice still shaky hours after the incident. James stood frozen, his face draining of color as he realized his carelessness could have cost them everything they held dear. "I don't understand," James said, looking at Benny with newfound respect. "How did he know? How did he understand the pill was dangerous?" Alicia shook her head, equally mystified. "I've been thinking about it all day. Uncle Daniel always said Benny was special, more aware than other birds. He must have seen us being careful with medications before, or maybe he just sensed the danger somehow." That night, Benny received extra treats and unlimited attention from both James and Alicia. The parrot seemed to understand the gravity of what had happened, remaining unusually calm and watchful over Poppy for the rest of the evening. What none of them realized was that this incident was just the beginning. Benny's extraordinary intervention had saved Poppy's life, but it had also revealed something remarkable about the parrot's perception and intelligence, something that would soon prove even more crucial as darker events began to unfold around the family. The following weeks passed without incident. James became meticulously careful with his medication, storing it in a locked cabinet in the master bathroom. Poppy continued her explorations of the house, now under even more vigilant supervision. And Benny maintained his watchful position, his dark eyes missing nothing. It was a Wednesday when things began to change. Olivia, Alicia's cousin, came to visit with her young daughter Lily. The two had recently moved back to town after Olivia's difficult divorce, and Alicia had been eager to reconnect and provide support. "It is so good to finally have family nearby again," Alicia said, embracing her cousin warmly at the door. "Poppy needs playmates her age." Olivia smiled, though there was something strained in her expression. "Thank you for having us. It has been challenging getting settled again." The children played on the living room floor while the women caught up over coffee. Benny observed from his perch, unusually quiet during the visit. His head tilted curiously whenever Olivia spoke, as if he was trying to understand something beneath her words. "How have you been, really?" Alicia asked gently, noticing the dark circles under her cousin's eyes. Olivia hesitated, glancing toward the children to ensure they were absorbed in their play. "It's been harder than I expected," she admitted quietly. "Vernon isn't making things easy." The divorce was just the beginning. Now there are custody battles, financial disputes. "I barely sleep anymore." "Is there anything I can do to help?" Alicia reached across the table to squeeze her cousin's hand. Before Olivia could answer, Benny suddenly spoke up from his perch. Afraid, help needed." Both women turned to look at the parrot, startled by his interjection. Olivia laughed nervously. "Quite a vocabulary he has." "Yes, he was full of surprises," Alicia agreed, though something about Benny's timing unsettled her. Uncle Daniel spent years teaching him. As Olivia turned back to her coffee, Alicia noticed Benny's gaze remained fixed on her cousin. His head tilted in that peculiar way that suggested he was processing something important. The visit ended with plans for another playdate the following week. As Olivia gathered Lily's things to leave, Benny called out again, this time with words that sent a chill down Alicia's spine. "Watch her. Danger comes. Watch her." Olivia froze, her back to the parrot. "What did he say?" Alicia laughed awkwardly. "Oh, just random phrases. He picks them up from TV shows sometimes." But as she closed the door behind her guests, Alicia couldn't shake the feeling that Benny's warnings weren't random at all. First the pill incident with Poppy, and now these strange proclamations during Olivia's visit. The parrot seemed to be trying to communicate something important, something beyond his usual mimicry. That night, Alicia recounted the strange incident to James as they prepared for bed. "You don't really think Benny's—" "What? Sensing danger? Reading minds?" James asked skeptically. "No, of course not," Alicia replied, though uncertainty lingered in her voice. "But you have to admit it's odd. First he saves Poppy from the pill, and now these warnings when Olivia visits. It is like he knows something we don't." James pulled her close. "Birds are incredibly perceptive. He probably picked up on stress signals from Olivia that we missed. But danger? That seems like a stretch." Alicia nodded, letting herself be reassured by her husband's logical explanation. Yet as she drifted off to sleep, Benny's warnings echoed in her mind. "Watch her. Danger comes." She couldn't have known then how prophetic those words would prove to be, or how soon the danger would arrive, not just for Olivia, but for all of them. Benny had sensed something dark approaching, and his attempts to warn them were just beginning. The next morning, Alicia woke to find Benny unusually agitated, pacing back and forth on his perch, and occasionally fluttering his wings in distress. When she approached to check on him, he fixed her with those intelligent eyes and spoke clearly. "Call her. Call Olivia now." A chill ran down Alicia's spine. James had already left for work, and Poppy was still asleep in her crib. The house was quiet, the morning sunshine creating a peaceful atmosphere that contrasted sharply with Benny's obvious distress. "It's too early to call Benny," Alicia said, trying to soothe the agitated bird. "I'll check in with her later today." But Benny would not be calmed. "Danger! Call now! Help Lily!" The mention of Olivia's daughter sent Alicia's heart racing. Against her better judgment, she picked up her phone and dialed Olivia S. number, telling herself she was just being paranoid, influenced by a bird's random vocalizations. The phone rang several times before Olivia answered, her voice thick and slurred. "Hello? Olivia, it is Alicia. I'm sorry to call so early, but is everything okay?" A long pause followed, punctuated by what sounded like labored breathing. "Not really," Olivia finally responded. "I don't feel well. Can it seem to get up? Lily S. crying, but I can't." Alarm bells rang in Alicia S. mind. "Olivia, listen to me. I am coming over right now. Stay on the phone if you can." Without waiting for a response, Alicia rushed to get Poppy from her crib, grabbed her keys and headed for the car, the phone still pressed to her ear. Benny watched from his perch, still agitated, but seemingly relieved that action was being taken. The drive to Olivia S. apartment took only 15 minutes, but to Alicia it felt like hours. Olivia had stopped responding on the phone, though Alicia could still hear Lily crying in the background. When she arrived, she pounded on the door, calling Olivia's name. No response came, but the crying continued from inside. After a moment's hesitation, Alicia tried the doorknob and found it unlocked. The scene inside sent fear coursing through her veins. Olivia lay on the couch, barely conscious, her breathing shallow and her skin pale. Lily, still in her pajamas, sat crying on the floor beside her mother, tugging at her unresponsive hand. Setting Poppy safely in a playpen, Alicia rushed to Olivia's side, checking her pulse and trying to rouse her. "Olivia, can you hear me? What happened?" Olivia's eyes fluttered open, unfocused and confused. "Pills," she mumbled. "Took pills to sleep. Too many. Accident." Alicia immediately called emergency services, her hand trembling as she reported what appeared to be an overdose. As she waited for the ambulance, she gathered Lily into her arms, comforting both children as best she could while keeping a close eye on Olivia's condition. The paramedics arrived quickly, taking charge of the situation with professional efficiency. As they prepared to transport Olivia to the hospital, one of them questioned Alicia. "You found her just in time. How did you know to check on her?" Alicia hesitated, the truth sounding too bizarre to share. "I had a feeling something was wrong, a warning from a friend." As the ambulance departed with Olivia, Alicia gathered both children and essential supplies for Lily, her mind reeling with the implications of what had happened. Had Olivia truly accidentally taken too many sleeping pills, overwhelmed by her circumstances? Or was there something more sinister at play? And how had Benny known? The Parrot's warnings echoed in her mind. Afraid, help needed, watch her, danger comes. When she returned home with the children, Benny was waiting, his intelligent eyes following her as she moved around the house, setting up temporary accommodations for Lily. "Good call, save Olivia, good call," the Parrot said quietly when Alicia finally approached his perch. "Yes, Benny," she whispered, reaching out to stroke his feathers with trembling fingers. "It was a good call, but how did you know?" The Parrot merely tilted his head, regarding her with those knowing eyes that seemed to hold secrets beyond human understanding. Later that day, after arranging emergency childcare for both Lily and Poppy, Alicia visited Olivia in the hospital. Her cousin was conscious but groggy, the hospital room sterile and quiet except for the steady beeping of monitors. "The doctors say if you hadn't found me when you did," Olivia's voice broke, tears welling in her eyes. "How did you know, Alicia? How did you know to check on me this morning?" Alicia perched on the edge of the hospital bed, weighing her words carefully. "Olivia, I need to ask you something important, and I need you to be honest with me. Was it really an accident, the pills?" Olivia's gaze dropped to her hands, which twisted nervously in the hospital sheets. "I was just so tired," she whispered. "I haven't been sleeping since the divorce started. The custody battle, Vernon's threats. It all became too much. I took one pill, then another when it didn't work, and then I don't remember after that." "Vernon's threats? What threats, Olivia?" A shadow crossed Olivia's face. "He said if I pursued full custody, he'd make me regret it, that he'd take Lily away permanently, that accidents happen." The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Alicia thought back to Benny's warnings, the specific mention of danger and Lily's name. "I think," Alicia said slowly. "We need to talk to the police. And when you re-released, you and Lily are coming to stay with us. No arguments." As she left the hospital, Alicia's mind raced with questions and a growing sense of unease. Benny's warnings had saved not one, but 2 lives now. First Poppy's, and now Olivia's. But the danger clearly hadn't passed. If Vernon was truly threatening Olivia and Lily, what might he do next? And how was Benny, a parrot, sensing these dangers before they materialized? It defied logical explanation, yet the evidence was becoming harder to dismiss. What Alicia didn't realize was that the mysteries surrounding Benny's warnings were about to deepen, and that the parrot's extraordinary perceptions would soon reveal a darker truth than any of them could have imagined, a truth that would put them all in grave danger. The following days brought a tense new normal to Alicia and James's home. Olivia and Lily had moved into the guest bedroom, creating a crowded but comforting sanctuary. James had taken the situation seriously, after hearing about Vernon's threats, installing additional security cameras around the property and making sure all doors and windows were secure before bedtime. Benny had become more vigilant than ever, his gaze constantly sweeping the rooms, his head tilting at the slightest unusual sound. He seemed particularly attentive whenever Lily was playing nearby, as if he had appointed himself her personal guardian. "I've never seen a bird behave this way," James remarked one evening, as they watched Benny keep his vigil from his perch. "It is almost like he understands everything happening around him." "Uncle Daniel always said Benny was special," Alicia replied, keeping her voice low so Olivia, who was putting the children to bed, wouldn't hear. But even he would be amazed by this. Firstly, the police had taken Olivia's statement about Vernon's threats seriously, especially given the suspicious circumstances of her accidental overdose. A restraining order had been issued, but everyone knew such legal protections were only as strong as Vernon's willingness to respect them. It was during breakfast 3 days after Olivia's hospital release that Benny's behavior changed again. The morning had started peacefully, with sunlight streaming through the kitchen windows as the adults sipped coffee while the children ate cereal at the table. Benny was enjoying apple slices from a small dish near his perch when he suddenly froze, his head turning sharply toward the window. "Man watching. Bad man watching," he announced clearly, his feathers ruffling in agitation. Everyone at the table went still. James immediately moved to the window, carefully peering out at the street beyond their front yard. "I don't see anyone," he reported, though his posture remained tense. Olivia had gone pale, her hands trembling slightly as she pulled Lily closer to her side. "Vernon," she whispered. "It has to be him." Alicia lifted Poppy from her high chair and joined James at the window. "Are you sure there has no one out there?" Before James could answer, Benny spoke again. "Car. Blue car. Man hiding." James stepped away from the window, moving toward the front door. "Stay here," he instructed firmly. "I'll check it out." "James, no!" Alicia protested, fear evident in her voice. "We should call the police." But James was already opening the door, his protective instincts overriding caution. Alicia quickly grabbed her phone and dialed emergency services as she watched her husband step onto the front porch. From her position, she could see James scanning the street, his body language alert and ready. After a moment, he seemed to focus on something, taking a few steps down the path toward the sidewalk. Suddenly, an engine roared to life. Through the window, Alicia caught a glimpse of a blue sedan speeding away from the curb where it had been parked several houses down. James stood watching it disappear around the corner, then quickly returned to the house, locking the door behind him. "Benny was right," he confirmed, his voice tight. "Blue car parked down the street. I couldn't see the driver clearly, but when I started walking toward it, they took off." Olivia buried her face in her hands. "He found us. I knew he would." The police arrived promptly, taking statements and increasing patrols in the neighborhood. Officer Neal, a compassionate woman with sharp eyes, paid special attention to Benny during her visit. "So the bird alerted you?" she asked, watching as Benny preened his feathers, seemingly unconcerned now that authorities were present. "It sounds crazy, I know," Alicia admitted, "but this isn't the first time. He warned us about a pill my daughter almost swallowed, and he knew something was wrong with Olivia the morning of her overdose. Officer Neal didn't appear skeptical as Alicia had feared. Instead, she nodded thoughtfully. Animals can sense things we miss sometimes. There was a case last year where a dog kept barking at a specific closet in a house we were searching. Turned out, there was a hidden compartment with crucial evidence inside. She glanced at Benny with newfound respect. "I'd pay attention to what he's trying to tell you." After the police left, a heavy silence fell over the household. The children, picking up on the adults' tension, became clingy and irritable. Olivia moved through the house like a ghost, jumping at every sound. That night, after everyone had finally fallen into uneasy sleep, Alicia was awakened by Benny's voice, not squawking in alarm, but speaking in a low, urgent tone. "Phone danger. Check phone." Alicia sat up in bed, disoriented and confused. James stirred beside her but didn't wake. Slipping out from under the covers, she padded barefoot to Benny's cage, which they had moved into their bedroom for the night. "What is it, Benny?" she whispered. "Phone danger, Olivia phone, check now." Something in his insistence propelled Alicia down the hall to the guest room. She hesitated at the door, not wanting to disturb Olivia and Lily, sleep. But Benny's warning echoed in her mind. Carefully, she eased the door open and slipped inside. Olivia and Lily were curled together on the bed, both sleeping soundly. Olivia's phone sat on the nightstand, its charging light glowing softly in the darkness. Feeling like an intruder, Alicia gently picked up the phone. The screen was locked, but notification previews were visible. What she saw made her blood run cold. A text message preview from an unknown number read, "I can see you sleeping, both of you. Soon, you'll never wake up." With shaking hands, Alicia took the phone back to her room, waking James with urgent whispers. Together, they called the police again, this time requesting immediate assistance. Officer Neal returned with backup, conducting a thorough search of the property, while Olivia sat trembling in the living room, Lily asleep in her arms. The text came from a burner phone, Officer Neal explained after making some calls. "Untraceable, but this changes things. These are clear death threats." "He's escalating," James said grimly, first watching the house, now threatening them directly. Alicia couldn't stop thinking about Benny's warning. How did he know about the text? Olivia's phone didn't even make a sound when it came in. No one had an answer for that, but the implications were becoming harder to ignore. Somehow Benny was perceiving dangers that humans couldn't detect, warning them of threats before they fully materialized. The police arranged for a patrol car to remain outside the house for the rest of the night. But everyone knew this was only a temporary solution. Vernon was growing more dangerous, more determined, and his threats were becoming increasingly explicit. The next morning brought a new complication. James had to travel for work, an unavoidable obligation that had been scheduled months in advance. "I'll cancel the trip," he insisted, as he and Alicia spoke in hushed tones in the kitchen. "So there's no way I am leaving you all vulnerable." "The police are watching the house," Alicia reminded him, though her voice lacked conviction, "and it's only for 2 days." Before James could respond, Benny spoke up from his perch. "Go work. I watch. I protect." The couple turned to stare at the parrot, whose intelligent eyes seemed to convey absolute certainty. "Did he just offer to stand guard?" James asked incredulously. Despite the tension, Alicia found herself smiling. "I think he did." In the end, they reached a compromise. James would make the trip but return a day early, and Alicia's brother Michael would stay at the house during his absence. The police had also arranged for regular drive-by checks, and Officer Neal had given Alicia her personal cell number for emergencies. As James prepared to leave, Benny maintained his watchful posture, missing nothing. When Michael arrived to stay with them, the parrot studied him intently before seemingly approving his presence with a nod. The first day of James's absence passed uneventfully. Michael's presence was reassuring, and the increased police patrols kept any sign of Vernon at bay. Olivia even managed to smile a few times as they all played board games in the evening, trying to maintain some sense of normalcy for the children. It was during the second night that everything changed. Alicia was awoken by Benny's urgent calls. Fire, fire, wake up! She bolted upright, immediately smelling smoke. Beside her, Michael was already on his feet, rushing to open the bedroom door. Smoke billowed in, thick and choking. "Get the children!" Michael shouted, already moving toward the guest room. Alicia grabbed Benny's cage and followed, her heart pounding. In the hallway, the smoke was thicker, making it difficult to see or breathe. She could hear Poppy crying from her room and Lily's frightened voice from the guest bedroom. Michael emerged from the smoke with both children in his arms. "The back door," he called to Alicia. "The front hallway is on fire." Struggling to breathe, they made their way through the house to the back door. Outside, the cool night air was a blessed relief after the choking smoke. They gathered on the lawn, counting heads to make sure everyone had escaped. "Where is Olivia?" Alicia suddenly realized, looking around frantically. Michael handed the children to her. "Stay here," he ordered, turning back toward the burning house. "No!" Alicia cried, but he had already disappeared into the smoke. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder as emergency vehicles approached. Alicia held the terrified children close, her eyes fixed on the back door, praying for Michael and Olivia to emerge. "Man there! Bad man there!" Benny suddenly shrieked from his cage, his wings flapping wildly. Alicia spun around, scanning the darkness beyond their yard. At first, she saw nothing, but then a shadow moved between trees at the edge of the property, a figure watching them, observing the chaos they had created. Vernon. The realization struck her with horrifying clarity. This was no accident. Vernon had set the fire, attempting to eliminate everyone who stood between him and Lily. Before she could react, Michael appeared at the back door, supporting a coughing, stumbling Olivia. Relief flooded through Alicia at the sight of them, even as the danger of their situation became clearer. The figure at the edge of the property moved, stepping into the faint glow cast by the burning house. Vernon's face was twisted with rage and determination, his eyes fixed on Lily. In his hand gleamed something metallic, a knife or gun. Alicia couldn't tell which in the darkness. "He's here!" she screamed to Michael, pointing toward the approaching figure. "Vernon!" Michael turned, pushing Olivia behind him protectively. The fire trucks and police cars screeched to a halt in front of the house, their lights casting chaotic patterns across the scene. Vernon hesitated, suddenly caught in the open as officers began to pour out of their vehicles. For a moment, he seemed frozen in indecision, his gaze darting between Lily and the approaching authorities. Then he turned and fled, disappearing into the darkness beyond the property. The next hours passed in a blur of statements, medical checks, and grim assessments of the damage to the house. The fire had been deliberately set, accelerants placed strategically to block the main exits. If not for Benny's warning, they might all have perished in the flames. Officer Neal found Alicia sitting in the back of an ambulance, Benny's cage beside her, the children and Olivia being treated nearby. "We'll find him," the officer promised, her expression determined. This was attempted murder, clear and simple. He won to get away with it. Alicia nodded numbly, her mind still processing how close they had come to tragedy. Beside her, Benny sat quietly in his cage, his feathers sooty from the smoke, but his eyes as alert as ever. "That bird saved your lives," Officer Neal observed, glancing at Benny with unabashed admiration. Again. "He did," Alicia agreed, reaching a finger through the cage bars to gently stroke Benny's head. "But how? How does he know these things?" It was a question that would continue to haunt her in the days to come, as they moved into temporary housing and the manhunt for Vernon intensified. Benny's extraordinary perception had saved them repeatedly, but the Parrot's abilities defied explanation, and they would soon be tested again as Vernon made one last desperate attempt to claim what he believed was his. The motel room was small but clean, a temporary haven while they figured out their next steps. James had returned immediately after the fire, cancelling the remainder of his business trip. The family, now expanded to include Olivia and Lily, gathered in the cramped space trying to create some sense of normalcy for the children. Benny's cage sat by the window, the Parrot maintaining his vigilant watch over the parking lot outside. He had been unusually quiet since the fire, as if conserving his energy for what was to come. Officer Neal visited daily, bringing updates on the investigation and the ongoing search for Vernon. Despite roadblocks and alerts at transportation hubs, he had somehow evaded capture, seemingly vanishing into thin air after setting the fire. "We've frozen his accounts and flagged his credit cards," she explained during one visit. "He can get far without resources." But her reassurances did little to ease their fears. Vernon had already demonstrated a frightening determination and resourcefulness. As long as he remained at large, none of them were truly safe. It was during one of these visits that Benny suddenly perked up, his head tilting in that now familiar way that indicated he had sensed something important. "Man knows. Man at work knows," he announced clearly, his gaze fixed on James. Everyone turned to look at James, whose brow furrowed in confusion. "What man? At my work?" he asked, directing the question to Benny as if the parrot could clarify. Benny ruffled his feathers, frustrated at the limitations of his communication. "Friend, not friend. Helps bad man." A chill ran through the room as understanding dawned. Vernon couldn't have known where Olivia was staying unless someone had told him, and the only connection to their address was through people who knew James and Alicia. "Is he saying someone at your workplace is helping Vernon?" Officer Neal asked, her professional demeanor sharpening with focus. James ran a hand through his hair, his expression troubled. "So I mentioned to a few colleagues that Olivia and Lily were staying with us. It wasn't a secret." Alicia's mind was racing. But how would any of them know Vernon? And why would they help him? The answer came from an unexpected source. Olivia, who had been listening silently from the corner where she sat with Lily, suddenly spoke up. "Paul," she said quietly. "Could it be Paul Gardner?" James looked startled. "My department head. What about him?" "Vernon mentioned him once," Olivia explained, her voice growing stronger as pieces fell into place. "They were college roommates or something. Vernon said he had a friend in the pharmaceutical industry who could get him special sleeping pills when I was having trouble after Lily was born." Her face paled as she made the connection. "The same pills I overdosed on." Officer Neal was already on her phone, calling in this new information. If Paul Gardner was the connection to Vernon, he might know where the fugitive was hiding, or even be actively helping him. "We need to move you all to a secure location," Officer Neal decided, after ending her call. "If this Paul person knows you are here, it is not safe." As they hurriedly packed their few belongings, Benny became increasingly agitated, hopping from one foot to another in his cage. "Coming now! Danger coming!" he squawked, his wings flapping in distress. James moved to the window, carefully peering out at the parking lot. His sharp intake of breath confirmed what Benny had already sensed. "It's Vernon," he said grimly, "and he's not alone." Through the gap in the curtains, they could see two men approaching the motel, moving with purpose toward their unit. Vernon's face was twisted with a determined rage that sent fear coursing through everyone in the room. "Back door," Officer Neal ordered, drawing her weapon. "Now!" As the others gathered the children and essential items, Officer Neal positioned herself near the front door, radioing for backup. "I'll hold them off. Get to my cruiser. Keys are in my jacket on the chair." Alicia grabbed Benny's cage while James scooped up both children. Olivia clutched a small bag of necessities as they slipped out the back door of the motel room, emerging into a narrow service corridor. They could hear commotion from the front of the building as they raced toward the parking lot where Officer Neal's cruiser waited. Just as they reached the vehicle, Benny let out another warning cry. "There! Man there!" James spun around to see Paul Gardner emerging from between parked cars, blocking their path to the cruiser. Unlike Vernon, Paul looked calm, almost regretful. "I'm sorry it came to this," he said quietly, "but Vernon is my oldest friend. He just wants his daughter back." "He tried to kill us," Alicia replied, stepping protectively in front of the others. "He set our house on fire with children inside." Paul's expression flickered, doubt crossing his features. "That is not what he told me. He said you were keeping Lily from him illegally, that Olivia was unstable." "And you believed him?" James demanded, anger replacing fear. "You've known me for years, Paul. How would I help someone who was unstable or illegal?" Before Paul could respond, Benny spoke again, but this time it wasn't his own voice that emerged. Instead, the parrot perfectly mimicked Vernon's voice, replaying words he must have overheard during the fire. "Once they re-gone, no one can stop me from taking her. Lawyer said if Olivia dies in an accident, I get full custody automatically." Pauline's face drained of color as he heard his friend's cold, calculated words in Vernon's own voice. The parrot continued, repeating more fragments of Vernon's plans, each more damning than the last. It was clear that Vernon had never intended merely to reclaim his daughter. He had been planning murder all along. "How?" Paul stammered, looking at Benny in shock. "How is that possible?" "He remembers everything he hears," Alicia explained, suddenly understanding the full extent of Benny's gift. The parrot hadn't been sensing danger through some mysterious ability. He had been connecting pieces of information that the humans around him had missed, recalling conversations and behaviors that signaled threats before they fully materialized. The sound of sirens filled the air as backup arrived. From the front of the motel came the sound of a scuffle, followed by Officer Neil's voice shouting commands. Paul stood frozen for a moment longer, conflict evident on his face. Then he stepped aside, lowering his head in defeat. "Go," he said quietly. "I never meant for anyone to get hurt. I'll tell them everything I know about Vernon's plans." They didn't wait for a second invitation. James unlocked Officer Neil's cruiser, with the keys Alicia had grabbed, and they piled inside, Benny's cage secured carefully on the middle seat. As they pulled away, Alicia looked back to see police officers converging on Paul, who was already talking, gesturing toward the motel where Vernon had been apprehended. The nightmare was finally ending. The days that followed brought a cascade of revelations. Vernon's phone, seized during his arrest, contained messages that corroborated everything Benny had mimicked, explicit plans to cause an accident that would eliminate Olivia and anyone protecting her, leaving him as Lily's sole legal guardian. Paul Gardner cooperated fully with authorities, revealing how Vernon had manipulated him into providing information and assistance by playing on their old friendship and telling increasingly elaborate lies about his custody situation. Most damning of all were the prescription pills found in Vernon's possession, the same medication Olivia had overdosed on, but in a much higher concentration than what would normally be prescribed. The evidence was irrefutable. Vernon had been planning Olivia's murder from the beginning, making it look like suicide so he could claim custody of Lily. "It's thanks to your parrot that we were able to connect all the dots," Officer Neil told them during her final debriefing visit. Vernon had been denied bail and was facing multiple felony charges, including attempted murder, arson, and conspiracy. Paul Gardner had been charged as an accessory, but was cooperating in exchange for a reduced sentence. "But how did Benny know?" James asked, the question that had been on everyone's mind throughout the ordeal. Officer Neil glanced at the parrot, who was contentedly shredding a piece of apple on his perch in the corner of their new temporary apartment. "Our specialists have a theory about that. African grey parrots have remarkable cognitive abilities and memory. They believe Benny wasn't predicting the future so much as connecting pieces of information faster than we could." Alicia nodded slowly. Like when he warned about the pill Poppy almost swallowed, he must have seen James take those pills every day and understood they weren't tea for babies. And he probably overheard parts of Olivia's phone conversations with Vernon before she came to stay with you, Officer Neil added. "Birds don't filter information the way we do. He was picking up on threat patterns we missed." "What about the text message?" Olivia asked. "How did he know about that when the phone didn't even make a sound?" Officer Neil smiled. "That one had us stumped until our tech team figured it out. Your phone's screen brightened slightly when the message arrived. In a dark room, a bird's sensitive vision would notice that change immediately." Benny saw the screen illuminate, and given the context of previous threats, recognized it as something important. The explanation was both ordinary and extraordinary. Benny hadn't possessed supernatural abilities after all, just exceptional observational skills combined with the unique perspective of a creature unburdened by human biases and assumptions. "Uncle Daniel always said Benny understood more than we realized," Alicia said softly, watching the parrot with newfound appreciation. "He spent years teaching him to connect words with their meanings, not just to mimic sounds." Over the following weeks, life gradually returned to a new normal. Insurance covered the damage to James and Alicia's house, and renovations began to repair the fire damage. Olivia and Lily remained with them during this time, slowly healing from their ordeal as Vernon awaited trial. The court granted Olivia permanent full custody of Lily, with Vernon's parental rights terminated due to his criminal actions. The restraining order was made permanent, ensuring he could never approach them again, regardless of the outcome of his criminal trial. One sunny afternoon, as they visited the construction site of their rebuilt home, Alicia noticed something that brought tears to her eyes. The contractors had included a special feature that hadn't been in the original plans: a custom-built aviary off the living room, spacious and filled with natural light, connected to the main house by a small doorway. "James, did you do this?" she asked, turning to her husband in surprise. He grinned, squeezing her hand. "Benny deserves an upgrade after everything he has done for our family. Uncle Daniel would have wanted him to have the best." Benny, perched on a portable stand nearby, seemed to approve of his future quarters, his intelligent eyes taking in every detail of the construction. "Home," he said clearly, bobbing his head. "Family safe now." The simple declaration brought smiles to everyone's faces. Against all odds, they had survived Vernon's twisted plans, emerging stronger and more united than before. Later that evening, as they gathered in their temporary apartment for dinner, Olivia made an announcement that added another layer of healing to their journey. "I've been offered a job at the Children's Advocacy Center," she told them, her eyes bright with purpose. "They want me to help develop programs for families affected by domestic violence and custody disputes. After everything we've been through, I feel like I can really make a difference for others in similar situations." The table erupted in congratulations and supportive words. Olivia's journey from fearful victim to empowered advocate reflected the transformation they had all undergone. "And more," she added with a smile, "they've already asked if Benny might be available for occasional visits. They think his story could help children understand that speaking up about danger is important no matter who you are." Benny, who had been quietly observing the conversation from his perch, chose that moment to interject. "Help others, speak truth, stay safe." The room fell silent for a moment, everyone struck by the simple wisdom in those words. Then laughter and conversation resumed, flowing around the table like a healing balm after months of fear and uncertainty. As summer faded into autumn, they moved back into their rebuilt home, now adapted to accommodate their expanded family. Olivia and Lily had a dedicated wing with their own entrance, providing independence while maintaining the close connection that had sustained them through their darkest hours. Benny thrived in his new aviary, often choosing to join the family in the main living areas, but always having his own spacious sanctuary to retreat to when he needed quiet. His vocabulary continued to expand, though he never again needed to use his voice to warn of immediate danger. The explanation for Benny's seeming prescience had been simple in the end: not supernatural awareness, but extraordinary perception and memory, combined with the unique perspective of a creature who noticed patterns humans often missed in their complex social world. Uncle Daniel's years of patient teaching had given Benny not just words but understanding, creating a bridge between human and avian consciousness that had ultimately saved them all. The Parrot's gift wasn't a prophetic vision, but something equally valuable: the ability to see clearly what was happening around him without human prejudice or blind spots. On the first anniversary of the fire, they gathered in the backyard for a celebration of survival and new beginnings. Benny perched on a special stand near the grill, occasionally commenting on the proceedings in his clear, intelligent voice. Officer Neal, now a family friend, raised her glass in a toast. "To Benny," she said with a smile, "the most observant detective I'd ever worked with." "To Benny," everyone echoed, glasses lifting toward the Parrot, who preened at the attention. As the evening settled into gentle conversation and laughter, Alicia found herself watching Benny with a profound sense of gratitude. The Parrot had taught them all to pay closer attention to the world around them, to notice the small details that often signaled important truths. Benny caught her gaze and tilted his head in that familiar, thoughtful way. "Love protects," he said simply. "Family, forever." And in those words lay the greatest truth of all, that love, combined with clear-eyed awareness, was the strongest protection against the darkness of the world. The parrot had shown them how to see danger clearly and face it together, emerging not just survivors but stronger and more connected than before. As the stars appeared in the evening sky, Benny's words echoed in Alicia's mind. Love protects, family forever. The simplest and most profound lesson, spoken by the most unexpected teacher. The guardian's call had been answered, the danger had passed, and in its place remained a family forged in adversity, their bonds unbreakable, their future bright with promise. And watching over them all, a grey parrot with wisdom in his eyes and truth in his voice, their unexpected guardian, their beloved friend, their Benny. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the world of captivating stories. I trust you found today's narrative as engaging as I did. If you enjoyed this exploration into fascinating and compelling narratives, kindly indicate your appreciation by liking this video. Are you watching on mobile? Show your appreciation with a double tap for hype. For more captivating stories and journeys into the heart of compelling storytelling, please subscribe to the channel and activate notifications so you don't miss a single upload. Your thoughts and interpretations are most welcome. Please share your perspectives on today's story in the comments below. And if you believe others would find this content engaging, please consider sharing the video with your network. Until our next journey into the world of captivating tales, I bid you farewell.